find myself reading the International Christian Concerns and Evangelical Fellowship of India and Open Doors articles on a daily and weekly basis because they provide the most updated information on India. Although I must say it's, for lack of a better term, regrettable just how many articles we come across with nearly the same story each time. A worship gathering was ambushed by Hindu nationalists, a church was desecrated or completely demolished by radicals, a pastor was falsely accused of and arrested for allegedly eliciting forced religious conversions, or a Christian was beaten to death with metal rods and sticks. It is endless. Even just within the past few weeks as well, there have been a handful of unique incidents. And it's indicative of a broader and deeply seated pattern that we have observed over the past few years. The best way to see the trend really is to look at the statistics, and I will be referring to the Evangelical Fellowship of India's reports that they have released over the past few years. In 2019, there were a total of 366 incidents of violence, harassment, intimidation, or arrest of Christians in India. In 2020, there were 327 cases, and in just the first half of 2021, there have already been 145. Keep in mind that there has been absolutely no decline in the number of incidents amidst the COVID-19 pandemic compared to recent years. Despite lockdown measures designed to keep people inside to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus, Christians were still targeted in violent attacks both in public and, as has been seen more recently, in private. Clandestine house churches and prayer meetings within the safety of the home have increasingly come under fire by Hindu nationalists. There are a few other points I would like to make regarding how COVID-19 has exacerbated the situation of religious persecution in India before I move on to the rest of my statement. As has been observed in other nations as well, religious minorities in India, including Christians and Muslims alike, have been scapegoated as super spreaders of the coronavirus, and they have been the subject of many hate campaigns. Acts of misinformation, posts on social media, politician remarks have used slogans such as Corona Jihad and lockdown cheats to falsely blame Muslims for the worsening COVID situation in India. At the same time, Christian funerals and burials in particular have been interrupted and suspended by Hindu nationalists on accusations that the bodies would, quote unquote, infect the neighborhood. A 2021 survey conducted on 2,100 residents in Uttar Pradesh found that 93% of respondents saw foreigners, namely religious minorities, as the responsible party for India's COVID-19 catastrophe. Just last month, a Christian doctor in Madhya Pradesh was suspended from her job and faced criminal charges for telling her patient that she believes that Jesus heals. We see the same thing happening to Christian COVID aid workers who are being baselessly accused of using their work to deliver assistance as a means to forcefully obtain religious conversions. In January, for example, a Christian and 3 other aid workers were arrested in Uttar Pradesh under false allegations that they were offering money in exchange for religious conversions. It is no coincidence that I've mentioned the states of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh quite a few times already in my remarks with regards to specific cases. These Indian states, alongside Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and a handful of others, are those which have enacted their own regional legislations, which are ironically called the quote-unquote Freedom of Religion Acts. These laws claim to tackle acts of forced and fraudulent religious conversion. In reality, however, they are misused to falsely accuse individuals engaging in peaceful Christian evangelism of using coercion or threat to cause others to change their religion. In essence, these are anti-conversion laws, and they directly contravene Article 25 of the Constitution of India, which guarantees the right to propagate religion, as well as Article 18 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which classifies religious conversion as a main component of religious freedom. Under these laws, Christians and other religious minorities can be immediately detained on mere accusations and without even the most rudimentary of investigations, such as is the case of the doctor and the aid workers I previously mentioned. We can see a pattern of coordination and impunity between non-state and state actors. A Hindu nationalist mob will disrupt a prayer meeting or worship gathering. They will then accuse the individuals conducting the meeting of forcefully converting attendants or the entire community to Christianity, and police will arrive and swiftly arrest the accused, all before they release them when no evidence of coerced conversions could be produced. This collusion between state and non-state actors also extends beyond just the implementation of anti-conversion laws. In instances where Hindu nationalist mobs have violently attacked Christian minorities and where evidence of injury and motivation are present and recorded in first information reports, police have been reluctant to register these legitimate cases and take action to punish assailants. In February 2021, a group of Christians was viciously attacked by Hindu extremists and had to spend time in the hospital recovering from their severe injuries. Instead of arresting the attackers, the Jharkhand police filed charges against the 12 attacked Christians and arrested 3. In mid-April, Hindu nationalists brutally attacked 2 Christian men and a Christian woman, but when police arrived, they were able to evade arrest by claiming to authorities that they had not committed a murder or major crime. If one wants to understand how such crimes can be committed with impunity, they need to look no farther than the ideology of the ruling BJP and the statements made by high officials and local authorities in BJP-led states. The BJP touts the Hindutva ideology, which seeks to emphasize the superiority of Hinduism, to define Indian culture according to Hindu values only, and to reject, quote unquote, foreign religious influence. Christians and Muslims alike have been characterized by politicians as ruthless missionaries or unwanted foreigners, or even traitors to the nation, and they have been the subject of derogatory and dehumanizing remarks. Put simply, this is state-sanctioned and state-abetted religious persecution. The United States, pursuant to the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, has the duty to, quote unquote, condemn violations of religious freedom and to promote and to assist other governments in the promotion of the fundamental right to freedom of religion, end quote. Part of this obligation includes taking measures to oppose FORB violations taking place around the world, measures such as sanctions, suspension of developmental assistance, deferral of cultural exchanges, and more. Also, under the 1998 Earth Act, the State Department is obligated to designate nations whose governments have engaged in or tolerated systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom as countries of particular concern. Designating India as a CPC is the necessary first step in holding the government of India accountable. Not only does it send a clear message to India that we will not stand by and continue to watch these abuses, but it also gives the US government the power to use a wide range of diplomatic and economic tools to make it costly for India to continue on the path of persecution. Yes, it is true that India is the largest democracy in the world and that it is one of the United States' primary strategic partners. However, this should not serve as a justification for overlooking the accelerating persecution of India's religious minorities. Rather, it is the responsibility and duty of the US to hold India accountable to its obligations as a secular democracy and its self-proclaimed standards of pluralism and peaceful coexistence, both of which are increasingly threatened under Modi's regime. We must ensure that our diplomacy and dialogue with India is contingent upon concrete improvements in religious freedom and human rights. And with that, I'd like to conclude my remarks and thank you once again for inviting me to speak on this issue.